My cousin Robert hijacked my wedding speech to air out family business drama. What happened next shocked everyone. So this happened last weekend, and I'm still processing it. I 31M got married to the love of my life. I'm a 29F. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but my cousin Robert 33M turned it into a public circus. Here's some context. My family owns a small but successful catering business. It started with my grandparents and then got passed down to my dad and uncle. Robert, my cousin, has always felt entitled to take over because he's the oldest male grandchild. He's been involved in the business but not exactly responsibly. He's the type to invest in flashy nonsense and leave others to clean up the mess. I've worked in the business since I was a teenager, managing events, handling clients, and doing the less glamorous stuff. Robert hates that people respect me more when it comes to actual operations. Anyway, the wedding was at this beautiful vineyard outside the city. Sun setting, fairy lights everywhere, the whole romantic vibe. Everything was perfect until the speeches. My dad gave a heartfelt toast, and my sister told a funny story, and then Robert got up. At first, I thought he was just going to crack some jokes, maybe embarrass me a little in the cousin way. Nope. Instead, he basically hijacked the mic and turned the speech into a business press conference. First of all, congrats to my cousin, he said, grinning like a politician. But since we've got all the family together here tonight, I think it's the right time to discuss the future of our family business. I could feel my stomach drop. Jess started murmuring. Emma gave me this wide-eyed look like, is this really happening? Robert kept going. Some of you might not know, but our catering company has been under questionable management. Certain people think they deserve to inherit it just because they play the good son role. He looked straight at me. The room went dead silent. My mom whispered, oh my god. I tried to interrupt Robert, not now, man, but he raised his voice. No, let's be honest, this isn't just about weddings or events. This business is the legacy of our grandparents, and I won't stand by while it's stolen by someone who got lucky being the favourite child. At that point, half the guests were staring at me, half at him. My uncle, his dad, was red in the face, whisper yelling for him to sit down. But Robert just smiled and said, people deserve the truth. I could feel my cheeks burning. On my wedding day, in front of him, his whole family, my college friends, even my boss who had come to support us. It felt like someone had ripped open a wound I never wanted exposed. And then things got worse. I wish I could say Robert stopped there, but oh no, he doubled down. Before anyone could take the mic, he started ranting about corruption in the business. Do you all know, he said loudly, pointing at me like some prosecutor in court, that it, meaning me, it gets a bigger share of profits than I do, that he's been groomed to take over, while the rest of us just get crumbs. The DJ literally had his hand hovering over the volume knob, like he wasn't sure if he should plus music to drown him out. My best man, Mike, muttered, this is insane, dude, want me to pull him off? I just shook my head because I didn't want a scene turning into an actual fistfight. But the scene was already nuclear. Emma's grandmother, bless her, whispered loud enough for half the table to hear, what kind of man ruins another man's wedding like this? Robert ignored the stares and went on. This business is my birthright. Grandpa wanted me to run it, but no, apparently it's Robert the screw-up, Robert the irresponsible one. Well, I'm done staying quiet. That's when my uncle, his dad, stood up, face flushed. Robert, sit down, now. Robert just laughed bitterly. Of course you'd side with them, you always do. You think I don't know, you've been feeding me lies for years while setting him up. He jabbed his finger at me again, and now all eyes were on me. I could feel the weight of every guest's gaze. My chest was tight, my palms sweaty. The last thing I wanted was to air business dirty laundry in front of 150 people on what should have been a joyful night. So I stood. Calm, but my voice shook. Robert, enough. This isn't the Tumblr place. You're humiliating yourself, and honestly, you're humiliating me too. But that only made him angrier. He raised his voice louder, practically shouting now. Humiliating you. You've been humiliating me my whole life, acting like the perfect golden boy while I get treated like trash. Emma put her hand on my arm, whispering, babe, please, don't let him ruin this. Her dad, who's usually the most polite man alive, suddenly spoke up. Young man, sit down before I escort you out myself. The crowd actually clapped at that. Like, full-on applause. But Robert wasn't done. He grabbed his glass of champagne, raised it like a toast, and sneered, fine, cheers to the golden child, cheers to the man who's about to rob us blind. Then he slammed the glass down so hard it shattered on the floor. Gasped everywhere. A few kids started crying. The staff rushed over. At that moment, my dad walked over to him, calm but firm. Robert, leave, you're not welcome here anymore. And that's when Robert said something that still makes my blood boil. He leaned in, close enough that only the front tables could hear, and spat out, this isn't over. If I don't get what's mine, I'll burn that business to the ground. The room froze. And that was only the beginning of the follow. The second Robert said, I'll burn that business to the ground, I swear you could hear the collective gasp ripple across the vineyard. It wasn't just a drunken outburst, it sounded like a legit threat. Em squeezed my hand so tightly I thought my bones would crack. Her voice trembled. Rob, he can't be serious, right? But judging by the wild look in his eyes, he was dead serious. My dad stayed calm, but his jaw was clenched. Robert, you've embarrassed yourself enough, go home before this gets worse. Robert smirked, like he was enjoying the chaos. Go home. Why would I leave when the truth is finally out in the open? Everyone here knows now. Everyone knows he's a fraud. That was it for Uncle Dave, Robert's dad. He stormed up to him and snapped, do you realize what you've just done, threatening your own family in front of strangers? Do you even hear yourself? Robert scoffed. Oh, so now I'm the villain, funny. You were all fine when I was working 60-hour weeks for scraps. While he jabbed his finger at me again and got cushy client accounts handed to him. Don't act like you're not on it, Dad. The crowd was dead silent, just watching the train wreck. My Aunt Margaret, his mom, looked like she was about to faint. She covered her face and whispered, please stop, Robert, please, not here. But Robert wasn't listening. He was pacing, his voice rising. You think you can silence me? You think pushing me out of the business, out of the family, is going to work? No. Everyone here will remember this night. They'll remember how you all tried to paint me as crazy when I'm the only one telling the truth. At this point, my best man Mike and two groomsmen quietly moved toward him, ready in case things turned physical. The venue manager was hovering by the door, clearly debating whether to call security. And then Emma Sweet, kind Emma, who hates conflict, stood up. Her voice cut through the noise. Robert, enough. This is our wedding. You don't get to ruin it just because you're bitter. That was the first time Robert looked genuinely rattled. He blinked at her, almost like he hadn't expected her to say anything. Then he smirked and said, "Wow, she's already speaking for you, huh? Guess that's what happens when you can't fight your own battles." That was it. I lost it. I stepped forward, right up in his face, and said through clenched teeth, "You've crossed the line. You want the business so badly. Fine, we'll talk about it, but not here, not today. If you don't leave now, I'll have security drag you out." Robert leaned closer, grinning like a madman. "Go ahead, make me the villain. Just remember, because when the business burns, the ashes will be on your hands." And with that, he shoved his chair over, stormed toward the exit, and slammed the door so hard the whole room shook. The silence afterward was deafening. Everyone just stared at me, waiting for me to say something. And honestly, I had no idea what to say. The second the door slammed behind Robert, the entire vineyard went so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. I was standing there, red-faced, my chest heaving, and 150 pairs of eyes were glued on me. Emma's bridesmaid tried to lighten the mood with a nervous laugh, muttering, "Well, that was dramatic." Nobody laughed. Emma's mom leaned over to her daughter and whispered, not quietly enough, "This is a disaster." I swear half the tables heard her. The humiliation hit me like a freight train. My wedding, the day we'd spent months planning, the day that was supposed to be about love, was now just a soap opera starring my unhinged cousin. I wanted to sink through the floor. My dad tried to salvage things. He stood up, clinked his glass, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please don't let one person's bitterness ruin this beautiful day. Let's raise a glass to Emma and my son." Some people politely lifted their glasses, but the vibe was completely off. I could see groups of guests whispering, giving me these pitting looks. Emma's college friends were literally texting under the table. My boss had this awkward half-smile plastered on his face like, what the hell did I just witness? Then came the family fallout right there in front of everyone. Aunt Margaret was sobbing into a napkin. "I told you, Dave, I told you he wasn't ready for responsibility," she hissed at her husband. Uncle Dave snapped back, "Don't start, Margaret. You've been coddling him his whole life. Maybe if he'd stopped beating him, he wouldn't embarrass us all tonight." Now they were fighting loud enough the people at the next table were pretending to sip wine while very obviously eavesdropping. Meanwhile, Emma's dad pulled me aside. His tone was calm, but firm. "Son, I like you, but what just happened was unacceptable. My daughter does not deserve this drama." I felt my stomach twist. I nodded and muttered, "I know, I'm so sorry." Emma, God bless her, took the mic and tried to shift the energy. "Okay, everyone, clearly tonight has been eventful." People chuckled nervously. She smiled. "But let's remember why we're here, love, family, and celebrating, so let's dance." The DJ, bless his soul, immediately cranked up some upbeat music. A few people shuffled to the dance floor, trying to pretend things were normal. But the tension lingered like smoke after a fire. I kept catching snippets of conversations. Did he really say he'd burn the business down? I always knew Robert was a hothead, but this. Imagine airing all the dirty laundry on your cousin's wedding day. Every whisper felt like another knife in my back. I forced myself to dance, to smile, but inside I was boiling with shame and anger. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Robert. "This is just the beginning." My hands went cold. I stared at Robert's text for what felt like an eternity, my thumb hovering over the screen, too angry to reply and too shocked to ignore it. "This is just the beginning." My stomach churned. The nerve. On my wedding day, no less. Emma noticed immediately. She tapped my arm gently, her eyes narrowed. "Who's texting you like that? Tell me it's not him." I sighed, showing her the screen. Her jaw dropped. Unbelievable, this was supposed to be our day, Rob, not some war zone for family business drama. I pulled her aside, whispering, "I know, Em. I don't even know what he's capable of, but I'm not letting him ruin our life, not today, not ever." Meanwhile, the whispers among the guests hadn't stopped. My uncle and aunt were still arguing, each trying to justify their stance. Aunt Margaret was saying, "He's always been the responsible one, how dare Robert say he's the favourite?" My dad snapped back, "Responsible, that's rich coming from someone who never actually runs the company." It was clear people were picking sides now. My cousin Michael, Robert's younger brother, came over looking sheepish. "Rob, I don't know what he's thinking, but you've got to be careful. Some people think he's serious about burning the business down." I clenched my fists. "I know, that's why I'm not responding, not today, not here." By now, even Emma's relatives were curious. Her aunt leaned over and whispered, "Is this a feud or?" Emma shot her a glare. "It's complicated, but not your problem right now. Just don't say anything." Then came the awkward part, family members subtly questioning my authority. One cousin, who used to be my friend, muttered under his breath, "I always thought Robert had a point. Maybe you are the golden boy." I felt my face heat up. Not just embarrassment, but anger at the insinuation. At the same time, some relatives whispered support. "You did the right thing letting him storm out," my uncle's sister said, patting my shoulder. "Don't let him control the narrative." The tension in the air was almost physical. Every toast, every clink of a glass felt like another reminder that our wedding had been hijacked. Emma tried her best to keep me grounded, reminding me, this is about us, not him. But my phone buzzed again. Another text from Robert. "Enjoy tonight. By tomorrow, the real games begin." I felt a cold pit in my stomach. My dad saw me staring at my phone and asked, "Is that him?" I nodded. "Yeah, he's not done." Em squeezed my hand. "We'll handle it together. Right now, let's focus on everyone else. Your family can sue, but we celebrate tonight." I tried to smile, but it was a shaky one. I realized at that moment that the humiliation wasn't just public, it had seeped into my own head. I kept imagining the conversations among the guests. Did Robert make me look incompetent? Did my family side with him? The rest of the night was a blur of forced smiles, awkward dances, and whispered gossip. And while we laughed for the cameras, I knew that once the wedding ended, the fallout with Robert would only escalate. By the time the cake came out, I was mentally preparing for the battle ahead. The day after the wedding was worse than the wedding itself. Robert didn't just disappear, he started calling my phone, sending emails, and even leaving cryptic messages on the family group chat. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart sank. My dad called a family meeting at the house that evening. Uncle Dave, Aunt Margaret, and a few cousins were there. Em stayed by my side, offering quiet support. Dad started firmly. Robert's behaviour at the wedding was unacceptable, threatening the family business, humiliating everyone. This cannot continue. Robert, of course, had the audacity to walk in late, smirking like he owned the place. I came because clearly, everyone is scared to hear the truth, he announced, throwing his coat on the couch. I took a deep breath. You humiliated me at my wedding, Robert. You threatened the business. You don't get to waltz in here and act like nothing happened. Robert laughed, a cold, mocking laugh. Humiliated? I just exposed the reality. Everyone knows you've been running the company while keeping the rest of us in the dark, that's all. I'm not wrong. Mom muttered under her breath. Not wrong? He threatened to burn it down. Emma, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. Robert, it's one thing to have grievances, but you crossed the line. You hurt your family, publicly, and that's not okay. Robert's smirk faltered slightly. So now she's talking too. Great. The bride, the golden child, everybody against me. Uncle Dave slammed his hand on the table. Enough, Robert. You've gone too far. Threatening property, making public accusations, and embarrassing the entire family at the wedding. This isn't negotiation. This is unacceptable. Aunt Margaret chimed in, her voice shaking. You've pushed us to the edge. We can't condone this behaviour. Robert's shoulders slumped slightly, but his glare was fierce. I would be silenced. The business is mine as much as anyone else's. I'll fight for what I deserve, even if it means... Dad cut him off sharply. You don't get to intimidate us. Not here. Not ever. You either agree to resolve this commie or you remove yourself from our lives. Your choice. For a tense moment, Robert stared at all of us, calculating. Then, almost theatrically, he sighed. Fine, I'll leave for now, but don't think this ends tonight. You've just postponed the reckoning. He stormed out, slamming the front door so hard it rattled the windows. Silence filled the room. I sank into the couch, exhausted, my chest aching from adrenaline and anger. And I held my hand tightly. We got through it, she said softly. Dad nodded. This doesn't mean it's over, but you stood your ground. You didn't retaliate. That's what matters. Mom wiped tears from her eyes. I just wish this had never happened on your wedding day. I sighed, leaning back. Me too, but at least we know where we stand. Robert's the problem, not the family, not the business. We can fix the damage. Emma rested her head on my shoulder. Exactly, we have each other. That's what counts. Even though Robert had left, his words lingered. The threat, the humiliation, it was all still there. But for the first time since the wedding, I felt a spark of hope. We couldn't control Robert's actions, but we could control ours. And somehow, that made the nightmare a little more bearable. A few weeks after the wedding, things started to settle, but not without scars. Robert hadn't contacted us again, at least not directly, and for that, I was cautiously grateful. But the tension lingered in family gatherings. Eyes would flick to me and then to Emma, and I could sense the undercurrent of judgment or concern. My dad called another family meeting, not as a confrontation this time, but a planning session for the future of the business. Uncle Dave, Aunt Margaret, and a few key cousins were there. Emma even joined, not because she was involved in the business, but because she had been through the chaos and had a calming influence. Dad opened the meeting. We can't let Robert's actions dictate the future of this company. We need rules, clear responsibilities, and most importantly, boundaries. I outlined a plan, operational responsibilities, financial oversight, and a formal process for decision making. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And importantly, it meant Robert couldn't just waltz in and claim authority. Aunt Margaret was quieter than usual. I suppose this is fair, she admitted. Robert can't just do whatever he wants. Uncle Dave nodded. We'll stick together on this. No more public meltdowns. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't over with Robert, but at least the family and the business was united. Emma looked at me and smiled. See, we survived. Your wedding didn't get ruined completely, and now you've got a plan to protect your legacy and your sanity. I laughed, the first genuine laugh since the wedding. Yeah, we survived. Barely, but we did. Then came the aftermath with a guess. Several family members admitted privately that they had been shocked at Robert's behaviour. My friends kept jokingly texting me about the epic meltdown at my wedding. Honestly, it was embarrassing, but over time, it became almost funny in that dark, surreal way that only weddings gone wrong can be. I learned something important through all this. Public humiliation stings like hell, but boundaries are everything. Robert couldn't dictate my day, my reputation, or the business. His actions were his own, and while the wounds were fresh, my family's support and Emma's unwavering presence helped me heal. The wedding photos were awkward in some shots. Smiling with tense faces, a few empty chairs where people had subtly distanced themselves from the drama, but in other pictures, Emma and I were laughing, holding each other tightly. Those were the ones I focused on. Months later, Robert's absence became almost a relief. His threats didn't materialise, and I realised the public humiliation he tried to cause had actually strengthened my resolve. I was more confident in my role in the business, more protective of my marriage, and more aware that some battles aren't worth fighting in public. In the end, the wedding became a story we could tell with a mix of horror and humour. Robert's meltdown was legendary, but it didn't define us. Emma and I had survived together, the family rallied, and the business remained intact. And while Robert's shadow still lingered in texts or whispered rumours, I knew one truth: no one, not even family, could steal the life I'd